Hi y'all, Stephanie here with Minimalist Mom Life. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another video made in the van while I wait for my little girly and dance. And I wanted to make a video in response to a question I got, I think it's probably been a month and a half ago, on Instagram about being a mom and being just exhausted and kind of mom burnout, mom exhaustion. So I'm going to give just some rambly, maybe I'll try to number them off, tips and thoughts that I have on how to, the mindset to have about mom exhaustion, as well as some maybe practical tips to mitigate some of that exhaustion. So my first thought with being exhausted as a mom is not a practical one. This is more of, I think, for me, a way of thinking about being tired as a mom. This is not a suggestion to get into, you know, mommy martyrdom where you just think, oh, I just do everything for everyone. I'm just a mom. Like, no, none of that. But I think about people that decide to that go after becoming doctors. Okay. And they go into even their undergrad degree knowing that they're going to take especially difficult classes and do a lot of specific extracurriculars and volunteer work and shadowing and all sorts of stuff for 4 years in an attempt to get into medical school. And that, depending on what you're doing, is, 4 to however many years. And then there's residency. And then if they're going to be a specialty doctor, sometimes there's like a second level of residency. And so they go into that undergrad knowing that they have a long, years of really sacrificial living to do what they want to do, to follow their dreams, to have the career that they want to have, and they're focused on that, and they're all in, and the people around them know that they're doing this really intense, really, all-encompassing thing with their life for this next season of life. Side note, my younger brother is hoping to get into medical school. He's an undergrad right now. So that's even more like on my thoughts of like thinking of this. And I think of motherhood very similar. When you are going to have your first baby, babies grow, you have them until they're 18, but really you don't, because when you become a teenager and you're driving and you've got your part-time job, parenting is not the same level. I'm not saying it's easier. I'm not saying it's easier, but the physical maybe involvement isn't the same. Anyways, the point being, you know that it's gonna be like all encompassing, that it's going to change your life unlike anything else you've ever done, that you're not going to be the same person, that you're going to sacrifice, that your time is going to be taken up, that relationships will change as you now have this huge endeavor that you're taking on and raising a child. And hopefully it's something that you really wanted to do. And so it's not a surprise that it takes up all your time. And it's not a surprise that there's sleepless nights. And it's not a surprise that you don't have the same amount of time for friendships or hobbies or other things as you did before, because you have made the choice to do something that is really massive and also insanely important, because you don't get a do-over in parenting your children. And of course, none of us will do it perfectly, and we will all have to repent to our kids, and hopefully you already are, but probably will even more so when our kids are adults and they tell us things that we did that we didn't realize were bothering them. But we still don't get to redo that once we get them. We can repent, but we don't get to reparent them as a 3-year-old, as a 7-year-old, as a 9-year-old, as a 12-year-old, as a 16-year-old. Like, that's the one chance we get. And so I look at it as like, this season of my life was meant to be used for this. And so if there's sleepless nights when they're babies, and if there's sleepless nights when they're older, and there's, just even a physical toll on doing it, it's because it's so incredibly worthwhile. And it's supposed to be, I think, intense, and it's supposed to be something that we do wholeheartedly with all of ourselves, and give ourselves to that. So I think that mindset, you wouldn't tell someone in medical school, well, you should just find more balance and self-care, right? You would be like, yeah, I bet that is really difficult. I bet you don't get as much sleep as you'd like. And I think it's really awesome and worthwhile what you're doing. And I think it has, to some degree, an end date when you get the doctorate. And I know doctors have crazy schedules, but maybe the analogy doesn't work perfectly. But the mindset for me has been helpful, and maybe it won't be for you. And I feel like I know I'm going to get people that that don't like me comparing the two and suggesting that being tired as a mom is probably pretty normal, but I think it is. But that's the mindset. So kind of going in that I know this is going to be somewhat sacrificial, and I know it's going to be just time consuming, and I know it may be tiring, but that doesn't make it wrong. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with motherhood, or even that there's something wrong with me. That's the mindset side. Now, the flip to that is, I think, practical things we can do that will help us be less exhausted. The first one being to quiet your surroundings and your mind. And I don't mean getting your kids to be quiet. My house is so loud, y'all. And there are times I really question my parenting and parenting in general with how much my kids can bicker at each other. So my house is by no means like quiet from my children. I saw a thing recently on social media that was claiming that loud children is like a compliment to your parenting because it means they feel safe. And I'm like, well, my gosh, my kids feel so safe. Anyway, I'm not talking about that kind of noise. I'm saying not having podcasts in your ear, not having music going, unless it's like soothing, calm worship music. And even then, there's probably periods where you need silence. Not having podcasts, not having YouTube videos playing in the background, not having cartoons on, not having Coco Melon or what's that lady, Miss Rachel. Turn the noise off, turn the screens off, take the earbuds out, and have no extra input into your brain. You have enough trying to hear all the kid conversations, trying to make sure people are being kind to each other, trying to respond to everybody's wants, needs, desires, questions for you, emotions, that you don't need everybody else's life, thoughts, opinions, convictions thrown at you while you're trying to manage all of your little people. I've talked about block scheduling, and I have videos about time management and giving yourself time where you can enjoy those things. And I love listening to the Dave Ramsey podcast, but I can't do that and manage all my kids and clean my house at the same time. Like, that's just going to be too much stimulation for me. And not only am I more likely to be snippy with my kids, but I'm going to be far more exhausted because now I'm asking my brain to think about this, my brain to respond to them, and then my brain to figure out what it is I'm cooking or cleaning or homeschool planning or whatever else. So I highly suggest limiting that. And then even giving yourself social media time that's very specific and not just periodically throughout the day, like not just checking your phone and reading someone's latest conviction about head covering and somebody else's latest thoughts on using vegetable oil and somebody else's concerns about the new president and then having to, like, all of that is just going on in your head and it's mentally draining you, even if you're not physically exhausted. And motherhood can be both physically and mentally exhausting. I think depending on the age group, it usually is one or the other, depending on what age your kids are. Sometimes it's both, and then you're adding that component in. So I highly suggest silencing your life outside of who's actually in your home far more often than you probably are. Turn the television off, turn the podcast off, turn YouTube off, turn social media off, and just deal with your own people. And then my other one, of course, is that you just can't do it all. So you really have to, again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with saying this. You have to know what's important and what you as a family value and make those what your schedule is centered around. Y'all, there are a million amazing activities for kids to do. And there are a million mom groups and church groups and homeschool groups and things that our children can do. But we have to weed through those and decide what is most important to our family, what we're called to be doing, and what is best for our family to be doing. Where does our time actually need to go? And then say no to other things. We recently tried out a co-op, and there was nothing wrong with the co-op, but it really wasn't a fit for my kids well enough that it was worth the drive 45 minutes away to do it once a week. And I had to let the really sweet lady knowing that's doing it know, like, hey, I don't think it's gonna work out for us. Maybe we'll try again next year. It was too much with everything else the kids really wanted to do. So when we weighed out what was the most important, the kids really wanted these things, these sports, and we couldn't have all these activities and manage this. And so we weighed out where our values, and that's where we're gonna put our time. I would have been a seriously exhausted mom, and they would have been cranky kids had we been trying to do all of those things, knowing we really couldn't do all of those things and do them well. So limiting your schedule. Of course, I'm going to say that I think a lot of mom exhaustion comes from having not just a cluttered mind from too much input that way, but a cluttered environment can be very exhausting. It can be visually draining for us to constantly see stuff. I know it takes energy to gain energy back at times. So it may take energy to declutter and give yourself back that energy. It may take energy in having the willpower to put your phone down, get off social media, but it will eventually give you energy back. It may take energy to switch to reading a physical book at night rather than being on your phone to wind down so that you can have a good night's sleep. But it will give you energy in the long run. It may take energy to wake up in the morning before your kids, but it may give you energy in the long run of the day when you feel like your cup has been filled before you're being asked on as a mom. So rather than just being like, well, I'm too exhausted to try this remedy, you may be exhausted initially in trying the remedy, and you may even be tired for a couple of weeks. But I think it'll have a long run payoff, and we can't just play victim to our circumstances. Sometimes we have to do something difficult to get the good thing that feels too difficult at the time, but it's not going to be, and the payoff is going to be great. Those are just a few of my thoughts on exhaustion. I'm going to do a part 2 to this video because my time is already running out. But I hope it's been helpful, and I hope that it has been encouraging. And yeah, let me know what helps you feel energized as a mom, and I will have a part 2 to this soon. Bye.